Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to introduce Mike Wells. He's a 15-year career veteran with the Prince George's County Fire and EMS Department. He began his fire service career at a young age while he was riding along with his dad, a former volunteer captain in the hometown of Wallingford, Connecticut, where Mike later became a junior volunteer. Moving for college to College Park, Maryland, Mike joined the College Park Volunteer Fire Department as part of the live-in program. While taking classes before and after school, he would ride along at College Park to be a part of the community. He then became, in 2006, a career firefighter with the Prince George's County Fire and EMS Department. Most of his career, he's been assigned to the Oxon Hill and the Langley Park communities. In 2016, Mike was one of the founding members of the Prince George's County's Career Labor Union's Peer Support Team. He has served as the coordinator for the program and has a master's instruction for the IFF Peer Support Program since 2018, teaching and consulting internationally. Through the IAFF, Mike has deployed across the United States following natural disasters and in line of duty deaths, supporting his brothers and sisters at the fire service in their most time of need. Currently, Mike has broadened his work beyond the IAFF, working locally for full-time for the Prince George's County Fire Department to ensure that the peer support program and behavioral health are accessible to all of its members. Mike is currently enrolled at the University of Massachusetts, Amherst, for a degree in human services.
Hello, thank you for taking the time to learn how to establish a peer support network for your department. As Teresa introduced me, again, my name is Mike Wells. I'm a firefighter in Prince George's County, as well as the peer support coordinator for the Prince George's County Professional Firefighters and Paramedics Association, as well as a master instructor for the International Association of Firefighters regarding behavioral health. My journey with peer support, as I look back, started early in my career. After I had just gotten off probation, ran a house fire that I viewed going to was going to be a nickel and dime job. As we arrived on scene and started doing our job, I got ahead of my crew. And as I was fighting the kitchen fire, trying to find the basement steps to attack the basement fire, I fell through a hole in the kitchen floor and landed in the basement. Grappling with the idea that I might have made a mistake, I reluctantly allowed my training to kick in and called a mayday. Once my brothers came around and got me out, it was run of the mill. My adrenaline was through the roof, small injuries, so I was on my way to the hospital. However, during those moments, my family received phone calls from friends that were listening to the fire on scanners, and a crisis for them started. As a young firefighter, I realized my confidence in myself was high. I realized the situation was in. Nobody knew that I was struggling with asking for help, because I did ask for help. And there was a successful outcome. However, for my family, they couldn't get a hold of me, and they automatically thought the worst. Once they realized that I was okay, their emotions started to quail down. As my adrenaline wore off, I became a little bit more sore. And the influx of phone calls that I was receiving from friends and coworkers was short of amazing. But there was one phone call that kind of still sticks out to me. And now that we can identify what peer support is, this was my first true encounter with peer support. Before I move into that, the fact of the matter is peer support's been around longer than all of us. What it's looked like in the past and back in 2007 when my Mayday happened is we just reach out for one another. That's where the term brotherhood comes from. What it's always looked like was we've helped each other move, or we help each other build decks, or whose daughter can babysit while I go into work before my wife gets home. But what we never have talked about is the mental health aspect of the job. We knew that the on-call jobs affected us. That's why everybody reached out to me after my Mayday. They knew it was a serious call, hopefully a once-in-a-career type call. But we do know that the lifestyle of working in the fire and EMS service not only affects us, but affects our families and how we interact on a daily basis. Back then, we used the whole just suck it up. Check your life at the door as you're walking into work. But I think we all understand, especially with cell phones and social media nowadays, that was an impossible task before social media and being checked in on our cell phones constantly while we're at work. Even back then, when you had something going on in your personal life, you brought it to work, whether it was conscious or not. So going back to my first interaction with peer support, a senior officer in the department that was not on this call recognized that I went through a potentially traumatic event. Back then, we called it a critical incident, and we're now moving to a PTE because what might be traumatic to me might not be to you. So it's not safe for us to assume that everybody's having the same stress reaction. But this officer was spot on. While I told him I was fine and that I was good, as I told everybody else that called me, he told me to let's be realistic. This was a serious call, and he started talking about a call that he went through in his life. He approached me directly and told me it's okay. In the next couple of days, my emotions might change a little bit. And he was right. I think seeing the worry on my family's face, my fiance, her face, my mother's face, definitely started sitting a little bit different with me. The face that I put on for my coworkers and my buddies was definitely a little bit different when I was looking at those two specific people. And this officer, he told me that was going to happen because that's what happened to him. On his call, he listened to everything that I was saying, which was really important, and he related and connected with an incident such as his, the one that he had, that was very close to my incident. What he did is he educated me. He told me about resources. Back then, there weren't a lot of readily available resources, but he told me it's okay to go to EAP. For me, I didn't need any of that. I didn't need counseling. Having friends around to talk about it and turning it into a presentation and learning experience for others was probably my therapy for it at the time. But again, what he did for me was he created a peer support network, somebody that I could call on if I needed it. Once a couple days went by, I no longer needed that peer support network, and I went on for my career, and I took that as confidence, and what that built for me is resiliency. What that looked like for a department, for the Prince George's County Fire and EMS Department, is let's fast forward to 2015 and 2016. As a department, we suffered quite a few incidents on and off the job. We had, in 2015 and 16, we had 3 recent retirees die in separate car accidents. We had an active firefighter that completed suicide. We had firefighters respond to an ambush on the Prince George's County Police Department that resulted in a line of duty death for PGPD. We had 2 firefighters die of occupational cancer. And we had 1 active firefighter shot on duty and that resulted in a line of duty death. But as you can see highlighted in red, only 2 of those incidents were a result of the actual job, such as mine. My incident, not as severe as the ones highlighted in red, were approached by a model that has been around in the fire service for a long time, and that's a CISM model. While the CISM model has definitely helped quite a few people, as you can see in the other slide, a lot of people have been left hanging in the balance because not everything that we deal with in our lifestyle is job related. When we talk about the CISM, it was in a group setting. Oftentimes it was mandated, and it went against the design of the CISM model. But when our chiefs and incident commanders they want to make sure and do the right thing and make sure all their people are okay, it becomes mandated, and it really has a belief that all people have the same reaction, which could be farther from the truth. As you're inside, the structure, fighting the fire when that near miss happens, the operator at the pump panel might not have had the same reaction. To assume that the same stress for each group is the same, causes things such as vicarious trauma and secondary trauma, especially when in a group setting. The peer support model, to which Prince George's County Fire EMS Department is moving to, is more of an approach by peers, people that understand the lifestyle, that understand what it's like to go home tired, that have been on some of those calls, might have had some of those near misses, or have dealt with things in their personal life that may not even be related to the job. The biggest block of that is a confidential approach. We're not doing it in a group anymore. At times we can if it's requested, but we're trying to go and do more of the one-on-one. We're also trying to approach people in an environment that they're comfortable with. Not everybody's comfortable talking about their critical incident or their divorce or their alcohol abuse problem in public or even in the firehouse. Sometimes taking off the uniform and meeting in a coffee shop is where that connection really can be made. And let's face it, let's talk when we're ready. Often we push one another to talk, and we're just not ready for it yet. We still got to go and deal with our personal feelings before we could go and put them on the stage. And also, let's face it, not everybody that walks in our firehouse is the person that we're going to talk to. So with the peer support model, we're able to go and have successful peers that have a little bit more advanced training that could go and that could direct individuals to resources as needed. But also on the flip side, we don't need to have people trained. We need to have people that also just understand the lifestyle in general, to which those people can go to those trained peers and understand the resources as needed as well. The biggest thing is with the peer support model is it takes into account the off-the-job issues, if you will, that we constantly face and that we know that we're more prone to with being in our profession. Specifically in Prince George's County, our peers went and took the IFF peer support training program. With the training that they received is 18 hours, and it talks heavily about active listening, what confidentiality truly is, about general assessment for one's mood, behavior, thinking, and how we interact with our life events, as well as doing an assessment for suicide risk. We talk about self-care quite a bit because as a peer, we're taking on quite a bit of other people's stress. And we also learn how to do crisis intervention and how to turn that into action planning and how to reach out to our membership and also build our program. One interesting fact with the IFF's peer support training program is it's not just for IAFF members. Anybody in the community or the fire service can go to IAFF.org/peer support, and there's a 2-hour online training that can be conducted. Additionally, as a IFF local is hosting a peer support class, non-members can also take it at the approval of the hosting party. So if you are in a combination system, such as Prince George's County, having that a conversation with the local president would be the place to start that. Our mission statement for IFF Local 1619's peer support team is the peer support is the process of giving and receiving non-clinical assistance to achieve long-term recovery from behavioral health challenges. This support is provided by peer supporters, people who have lived the experience and or been trained to assist in others in initiating in maintaining long-term recovery and enhancing the quality of life for individuals and their families. Some key points that I've highlighted is it's non-clinical assistant. Our peers are not clinicians. The way that we equate the assistance that we provide is that we're hazmat awareness trained. We have enough training to identify behavioral health changes with our brothers and sisters and know when we need to refer them to a professional. A little bit of the data that my team has collected has identified that 65% of the 470 contacts my team had in 2020, people just wanted to talk. People just wanted to have an ear to listen to them, and vent, if you will. So having to go and have resources, while it's very important to do so, and I'm going to talk more about that in a couple slides, just being available for our brothers and sisters to have somebody to talk to that can listen with an empathetic ear goes a long way. You know, so let's talk about the lived experience part that's highlighted. Again, we know what it's like to be tired after a shift, or have to go to another job, or having to come home and being a father, a mother, or caretaker, and just being simply exhausted. We all use that gallows humor, that dark humor, where some of our friends that aren't in the fire service kind of look at us with a side eye a little bit. And we know that, you know, that adrenaline rush when the bell goes off. And not a lot of people that haven't done this job really understand who that is. So a lot of times it's difficult to talk to people, you know, within our social network about on-the-job stuff. When we talk about training, we're not always talking about behavioral health related issues. You know, we often find ourselves in some financial issues, as well as just trying to find childcare while both, you know, caretakers are on a 24-hour schedule. Could definitely be tough. Tapping into resources available, you know, and being available to tap into those resources, I should say, is that the job of a peer support team member. And then the biggest thing, again, in my situation, I was fine. As an individual, I was okay with my Mayday. I chalked it up as doing my job. I had a good outcome. I ended up going to a really great assignment after that, and my career really took off. However, for my family, it was a little different. You know, my mom was nervous on the days that I was going to work. My fiance was really questioning if this would be the job for me as we go and as we try to have a family. And with the previous models, the CISM model, we don't encompass the family. You know, a lot of stuff that we have going on in our house, when we bring it into work, our mind is might be elsewhere. What I try to go and relate that to is, you know, professional sports teams have sports psychologists to ensure that their players have every aspect of their life covered. So when they're at work, when they have to just focus on catching that ball, everything else in their life is taken care of. While we don't get paid millions of dollars, or sometimes anything to do this job, that might not, you know, I don't know if that's a great example, but the more that we could do for our brothers and sisters to make sure that their home life is in check, so all they have to focus on when they come into work or get into the, you know, to the firehouse or EMS house is just focusing on the mission of being available for the community, will go a long way, and we'll also see a reduction in injuries, as well as accidents, so on and so forth. So peer support is just another tool in the toolbox. And a lot of the tools that we have in our toolbox in Prince George's County, what we've had for years and years is, I've already talked about the CISM component, but we've also had chaplains, or we have chaplains. We've had an employee assistance program, both in the fire department and the county. So basically 2 programs. We've had clinicians within our community, as well as community programs, which I'll talk a little bit more as to what that looks like and what's available to you within your community. But if you noticed in the title of this presentation, it's the Peer Support Network and not the Peer Support Team, because it's a network that we really need to go and establish. every single one of us, as we come into the fire service, we need to understand that we need to have friends that are going to help us get through this career, not just on the job, but also off the job. People that aren't in our circles all the time. So we're not engaged in that dark humor constantly. We can come back to being a human again for a little bit. The personal networks also might look like family, friends, church groups. And then we move to the next circle, and that's the kitchen table. And every single crew, that's where the true peer network engages. That's where we're going to go, and we're going to be able to notice those changes in each other's moods, thinking, behavior. We know what life events are going on. We know when Joe comes into work, and just by the way that he puts his bag down, what kind of day we're going to have with Joe, whether we're going to have a happy Joe or a grumpy Joe. And often we're hard on each other, which is good because it makes us have drive. But in the same time, I remember catching myself years ago telling friends or coworkers like, hey man, you're messed up and you need some help, but we left it there. And the reason why we left it there is, one, we figured it wasn't our business, and two, we didn't really know where to tell them to go. So having the next circle, the peer support team, for people to either go to because they don't feel comfortable talking about what they got going on at the kitchen table, or the kitchen table doesn't know how to go and talk to that one person that might need some help. The peer support team needs to be a confidential group that has access to resources to assist those people to get the help if needed, or just give another set of ears that might be different than the normal day-to-day. Our regional peer support networks through MIMS, through other departments, through other associations, really needs to be worked on in this system. I've had the pleasure of working with the counties and jurisdictions right around us in the state of Maryland, and many of us have talked in the past. What this offers for our people is they might not want to talk to anybody in Prince George's County, but what I can do is I can say, you know what, I know a firefighter across the state that's battling cancer. So I understand you don't want to talk to anybody in the county, but how about I get you connected with them? They might be able to give you some insight on what's next, or what resources are available to you. And then there's anonymous resources, which I'll get into that in a little bit. But that's where kind of our helplines come in to really offer that that level of confidentiality, no matter which way we go. The biggest thing is we need options for our people. We can't just go and throw out the last slide and only have five options that nobody really knows about. And we go and we check a box and say we offer them. We need to have engagement. We need to have an understanding of how we work, how the systems work, and what options are available for the people. Before we could go and establish any of these networks or establishing a peer team, we really need to go and obtain buy-in. And how do we make the case that we need peer support? In Prince George's County, what happened for us, unfortunately, was recent events. As a lot of those events built up, we realized the health of our brothers and sisters, while nobody would come out and say they needed some help, people needed some help. We could see that through their actions on and off the job. Many times, we could go and we could look back at past instances and say, you know what, back in 2007 when you fell through a floor, yeah, your family kind of took that kind of hard. You probably could have used some help. And also doing needs assessments or risk assessments of departments, which we do in so many other aspects of the job. When we talk about apparatus placement, operational issues, we do needs assessments and risk assessments all the time. So why not behavioral health? It's just a matter of getting a hold of the experts, whether it's through the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation or the International Association of Firefighters. They have a lot of resources available to us to do needs and risk assessments. So who do we need to go and obtain buy-in by? Well, the membership, of course. And I start with the membership because oftentimes the leadership and administration, we think we know what our members need and what our members want. But if we don't have any buy-in from the majority of the department, our worker bees, we're not going to be successful. That's not to go and to say that we don't need buy-in from the leadership and administrations. We definitely do. If we could work together with associations, with leadership, we're going to be more successful to be able to go and to get programs off the floor. The next biggest thing that we need to have is the confidentiality. Without confidentiality, we don't have a program, and it's very hard to do. You know, when we go and when we talk about why our brothers and sisters don't come forward and they're willing to struggle, a lot of times what you're going to hear is stigma. Simply put, we're so hard on each other at the kitchen table that we don't make it available, that when we have real issues, it's just easier for us to struggle. Which, having been at those kitchen tables before and been hard on some buddies of mine, when they're struggling, it's the last thing I want them to do. I want them to be able to come forward to me to help them through the problem. We help strangers all the time, so why not help one another? When we talk about confidentiality, it's kind of on a who needs to know basis, and frankly, it needs to be up to the individual seeking the support that allows us to go and break confidentiality. So until that happens, things need to remain between us. In a second, we're going to talk about team leaders and team members, but the biggest thing is not everybody can be a team member due to their involvement in the rumor mills. As well as spreading people's business. So it really needs to be taken a look into, and confidentiality needs to be the top priority of any program in order to be successful. Next, we need to identify a team leader. Who can take on this role? And what does being a team leader really involve? Well, we can't have another project person. We all know that person that picks up every project, that has involvement in everything. I will tell you that once you go and establish a peer support program or a peer support network, there's going to be a lot of behind the scenes work to do. So that person that's involved in a couple other things might not be the best person to take on this new project. We need to go and we need to have a strong, ongoing support in the field. While we also need to go and identify places such as dispatchers, honor guards, and other ancillary aspects of our departments, for where the majority of our people are, there needs to be support on a day-to-day basis and be available. And the availability is the biggest piece to that. This person's going to act as a liaison to mental health professionals, and they're going to need to coordinate meetings and trainings. This next point, working with administration, I can't stress that enough. While we all don't always see eye to eye, again, in Prince George's County, our peer support team is through the union. But to date right now, we have a great relationship with the management of the Prince George's County Fire EMS Department, and it has to work that way. We can't go and policy everything. A lot of what we deal with on the peer support and to meet the needs of our members for on and off duty issues really is a lot of gray areas. And if we go and if we box in black and white, some people might be left to hang in the balance. The team leader needs to believe in the mission, and need to be a leader that's driven, confident, able to be adaptive, receptive, as well as involved in multiple networks, especially as a region. We're all trying to find the same stuff. We're all trying to get the same answers to help our brothers and sisters. Why reinvent the wheel? That might be the laziness in me speaking, but why reinvent the wheel if you guys in Western Maryland are already doing something great? We need to figure out a way to share information throughout the state. That way our brothers and sisters are, have the best network available to them, locally and geographically. And organization really needs to be a key point for the team leader. So how do we recruit peers? Well, in Prince George's County, the way it started is we did a survey amongst our union's membership. It was a general advertisement that went and asked who, if you were going through something on or off duty, would you want to talk to? I found out later on that my name came up as a joke. A bunch of guys were joking around about it, and they told me a couple years later as I took over the team, and the joke's on them now. But there's people in your department that people go to and talk to on a daily basis as it is. Those are the people that you want to be on your team, the people that are respected, that are willing to go and keep people's information private. The demographic of your team really needs to be diverse as your agency. We need all ranks, we need all genders, ages, races, sexual orientation. The goal should be to mirror your team just as your general membership. And it needs to be an avenue for everyone in your department to feel comfortable with someone to speak with. I will say that we did try to have newer people on our team and realize that they have a lot to focus on in their careers. So we require people to be off probation in order to be on the team. Additionally, when we talk about steps within Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous, step 12, we want to go and we want to provide mentorship to others. While that is part of the steps, peer work could definitely be taxing. A requirement on my team is that you need to be in recovery for 18 to 24 months. Or if you are in recovery for issues such as PTSD, that you're in a good place in recovery, because the last thing that we want to do is trigger somebody for a relapse. But also having people that are in recovery is crucial to go and to have people that lived experiences and come out on the right side of whatever they were battling. It should also be noted that while that is important, this isn't a team for self-help. Peers should be really good examples of being in mentally healthy shape, having a sense of humor, being committed, being consistent. Able to be non-judgmental and that are trustworthy amongst the membership are really key aspects, as well as being a good listener, being mature, being approachable and empathetic. Moving into different team models across the United States, there's different types of models everywhere you go. There's department-wide models, such as what a lot of you are currently doing in bigger jurisdictions. There's organizational models where I fall into in Prince George's County. Our peer support team is through the union and the volunteer associations trying to get a team up and running. Multi-jurisdictional teams, we should be looking at that as a model. Hopefully MIMS and MIFRI can be a driver in that to allow for jurisdictions to come together and create that extra net and added layer of support for our brothers and sisters. State associations as well as regional, within the DMV could be crucial as well to add an extra layer of support. Really, there is no recipe book on what this needs to look like or how this looks. It's really up to our imagination as well as to meeting the needs of our brothers and sisters. So when we poll our members, we might want to ask, do you want something in-house or do you want strangers to talk to? Because I know some people in my department prefer to talk to people on the job in Prince George's County, while others really would like to talk to somebody outside of the department for that extra added level of confidentiality. One of the key components of having a behavioral health program or a peer support network is having oversight. We need to have a culturally competent clinician that's accessible to oversee our team. We're very fortunate with Local 1619's peer support team that we have Dr. Kathleen Talent. She is co-owner of Therapy Cafe down in Southern Maryland. She makes sure that our clinician provides oversight to make sure that our mission statement is being upheld with the most recent research available in the fire service subset. Additionally, in the state of Maryland, peer support teams confidentiality comes from a clinician's patient privacy. That could be found in the Maryland Senate Bill 0104 from 2018. That's where our confidentiality comes from, so it's crucial that we have somebody kind of doing that oversight for us. The biggest question that I get is, how do I train my team? And let's face it, there's a lot of training out there. Behavioral health is not only becoming a big topic in the fire service, but in our society in general. While this is not an advertisement for any of the training or any training programs out there, but those listed on your screen right now have fantastic classes that your teams can take in order to be, have the latest education in behavioral health. When it all boils down, what our peers need initial training in is active listening, motivational interviewing, crisis intervention, and how to collaborate and consult with professionals as needed. What referral networks really need to look like is we need to have options, and this really needs to come down from your members. You know your members of your department or of your organization. But we need to have crisis intervention options. While nobody ever plans for a crisis, we know that they do happen. And that's not always as a result, very rarely is it as a result of a potentially traumatic event. It's other aspects of our life that lead us into crisis. However, we need to have options that are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because we know with our line of work, crises don't always happen on a Monday morning. And also the behavioral health world works a little bit different. We're the only people that put down what we're doing and go and help people. Everybody else, whether it's a plumber or a clinician, takes a little bit of time to come out and do that. So we need to have the culturally competent, intervention programs available to us. We're going to talk a little bit more about the chaplains, inpatient treatment centers, what type of therapists our brothers and sisters commonly use, what is the difference between a therapist and a psychiatrist, as well as some other needs that we've identified in Prince George's County. Again, in Prince George's County, we've created a resource list. I'm very proud of my resource committee. They've organized a Excel sheet that's in front of you right now, and here's a bunch of resources that we have for crisis intervention. Feel free to use them, but as you could see, we have some that are specific to Prince George's County, as well as some that are available in the area, as well as some that are available via hotlines. Some of the main ones that you have to have is the National Suicide Hotline, as well as domestic violence hotlines and veteran crisis hotlines as well. Those are all free. Those are all readily available. My suggestion to you, though, is call every single one of these resources before you use them. Understand how they work. Find out who's picking up the phone. And educate your people as to what that looks like if you are going to advertise these publicly. One of the biggest things for me is I don't want to find out at 2 o'clock in the morning when one of my brothers or sisters in crisis is that this is a 9 to 5 organization, or that this requires insurance to use. So really do a good job is vetting what those resources look like. When we talk about chaplains, we need people that are approachable, available, have different denominations, and they're identifiable. Fortunately, with the collaborative that we have in Prince George's County between the fire department, police department, sheriffs, and corrections, we've identified chaplains that are culturally competent in either specific areas or organizations, as well as different priests, rabbis, imams, and we also have, I hope I don't butcher this, bhikkhus that are Buddhist priests. We need to make sure that they understand that we're looking for more of a spirituality rather than religion. And not everybody is going to feel comfortable being approached by a chaplain, but working together with the peer support network, it's a very strong tool for the toolbox as needed. As it says at the bottom and on the previous slides, I'm not endorsing any of these, but this is just an example as to what our resource list looks like and what our Excel sheet looks like. We need to have inpatient treatment facilities that understand the fire service, as well as us having an understanding of the insurance that drives that. Unfortunately, insurance is going to be a big factor when we're talking about behavioral health treatment. So we need to know what the process looks like. Is one of these places a place that I could just show up to in the middle of night and drop somebody off, or do we have to go to the ER to get clearance, to complete detox before we could get somebody into one of these facilities? That's kind of, again, anytime before any of these resources can make it onto my list, we have to physically have people go out to them and check them out. Our clinician has to take a look at their programs that they offer to make sure the modalities that they're using are in line with what my members need in the fire service. And then how do we contact them? Early when we went and we developed our team, we realized that our members have a wide range of needs. Doing this job, obviously trauma is one of the biggest components that we need when we're addressing post-traumatic stress disorder, acute stress, and anxiety. But we also realize that a lot of our members have marriage and family needs, as well as alcohol and substance abuse, gambling. Are some of the more common disorders that we're seeing with our brothers and sisters. Additionally, anger management options and OCD are some other common disorders that we have. Let me go back for 1 second. When we started our team, we realized we have members that live in multiple states around the area. We kind of drew a circle, as you could see, from the Lancaster, Pennsylvania area out through West Virginia down to Richmond and the Eastern Shore. What we wanted to make sure is that when one of our members needed a resource, that it was available to them in their community. So I suggest that you try to do the same for your members as well. Some of the therapist specialties that we're looking for, again, when we're talking about trauma, is cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, EMDR, which is we have great success with our members battling PTSD, and EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization reprocessing. I'm not going to get too much into that right now, but feel free to check that out and search that. It's pretty incredible stuff. And then Dbt Therapy as well, which is dialectal behavioral therapy. When we're talking about marriages, we need it for the spouses and families. And our addiction therapists really need to have programs that encompass co-occurring and dual diagnosis, for not just the substance abuse issues, but also the mental health aspect as well. And then, as I said, some of these other things such as anxiety, anger management, depression, and OCD are common ones that we see, with our brothers and sisters. Again, psychiatry is the branch of medicine that focuses on diagnosis, treatment, and the prevention of mental, emotional, and behavioral health disorders. That comes directly from the American Psychiatric Association. This psychiatrists are commonly, that's where the medications are coming in, get involved. One thing that we have to be careful with when we are trying to identify psychiatrists is that they understand our NFPA requirements. Not all the medications that they prescribe our members can take and be on full duty. So we need to go make sure that they have a copy of our NFPAs and our physicals and all that stuff to have a good understanding. Other options that we've found successful for our team is grief counseling, sleep therapy, which I can't highlight enough, financial, legal, and of course the biohazard cleanup. We found that when our members' families have to go through a suicide, taking the cleanup of their house is a huge load off their plate. So these are just some other examples that are on our resource list, and I'm more than happy to share this presentation for you to go and kind of do your own research for your members. Due to time constraints, I'm not going to get too much into this, but we have a vetting tool that we've created that we found to be successful when asking questions to all of these the previous therapists and psychiatrists and inpatient facilities. We really need to understand why they think that they're capable of working with us in the fire and EMS department, where their experience and education kind of comes from, and really make sure that they understand who we are. They might not be culturally competent, but are they willing to come out and sit at your kitchen table to learn who we are as firefighters? Are they willing to come out and do ride-alongs? Are they willing to come out and give education to our members? That goes a real long way, and vice versa. Our members need to go and understand who they are. I can't tell you how many times I've had a therapist walk into a firehouse and everybody clams up and everybody's expecting that the therapist is judging them in every action they're doing. Therapists are human too, and our people need to understand what that process looks like. And that really kind of moves us into conducting outreach. Not only do people need to understand what behavioral health looks like, but it needs to start at the beginning of our careers. In Prince George's County, we're piloting a program similar to what Howard County's done, is get education in recruit schools so people understand on how to go and how to deal with the stress. We're teaching them how to work under. We do a fantastic job at institutions such as MIFRE and training academies of how to go and how to operate under high stress. But are we teaching enough, as I like to call it, is driving on the highway, taking those exits back into real life and kind of going back into being caretakers, mothers, fathers, and citizens within our community. We all don't have to operate like we're going lights and sirens with everything. It's just a spilled milk. We don't need to have that anger reaction that we would have with not being able to get that IV or the intubation. Outside of at the beginning of the career, there needs to be regular station visits and interactions with our brothers and sisters. That also helps us identify any problems within stations or within shifts. We also need to be available after potentially traumatic events. Those include line of duty deaths, near misses, maydays, death or severe injuries to children, mass casualty events, and some of these acts of terror that we're finding ourselves going to. How we respond to PTEs, as I kind of talked about early on, is different than we previously talked about, and I'll be more than happy to speak to specifically what we are doing in Prince George's County about potentially traumatic events at a later date. Additionally, we need to maintain our team. If you are going to establish your team, your peers work in the field. They're still having a day-to-day job. They still have responsibilities outside of their life. This is just one more added layer to who they are. We need to go and do regular self-care assessments. When we do our training programs, you need to learn how to go and conduct self-care with your team. We need to track work productivity. For our team, we don't track statistics of the individual that we're working with rather than the work that our peer team members are doing. I don't need to know that one of my peers is working with Jimmy. But what I would like to know is my peers working with somebody and they're receiving phone calls at 3 o'clock in the morning at a frequency that probably isn't going to be sustainable for their mental health, and we need to come up with other resources to do that. Again, I could speak more to what that program looks like, or I could give the creators of this presentation information on how you could build that simply by using a Google form. And some of the questions so we could still maintain that confidentiality. And additionally, strongly suggest doing a checkup from the neck up. Getting your peer support team members, having them have an opportunity to sit down with a clinician and kind of just make sure that they are doing the proper self-care needed for sustainability for them to be team members, and that they're not putting added stress on their life, which is ultimately going to require them from needing peer support, in the future. And most importantly, as we kind of talk about data, is we really need to evaluate our impact. That really comes from testimonials from people that have used the peer support network. Finding out how long our team members are working, how their quality is, if there's any hiccups, or if some of those resources that you work so hard to try to obtain really aren't working out for your members. And put it out to our members through a survey as what they have them give a grade for your peer support team and identify any shortfalls or any needs. Because at the end of the day, we like to be in control as firefighters and paramedics and EMTs. So that offers another way for your members to be in control of their program, because ultimately it is their program that you're creating. So as I close, and I know there's going to be quite a few questions, please feel free to send me an email, and I will answer as best I can, or find you the answer. Identify the needs of your members. Don't assume that you know what those needs are. How you accept trained peers, or how you get peers trained. There's a lot of options out there. You got to figure out what works best for you. Not only from like a time management time, but also a cost effective, because let's face it, everything does have a cost associated to it. There are free options as well, and tapping into those resources really, you really got to figure out how the level of training that you want your team to. Again, in that Senate bill that I talked about, it kind of has a little bit of a breakdown as to what a peer team or a CISM team needs for training. Establishing a referral network. Most of you already have them in your community. You just need to find a way to organize them. Be more than happy to share the resource list that my team has created and uses. Feel free to send me an email. I'll be more than happy to send that out to you. You need to have anonymous options. Look into some of those resources that I shared, or find ones that meet your needs, and continue getting educated on behavioral health aspects in the fire service. While behavioral health has been around forever, the subset group of the fire service has not. We've often been lumped into groups such as the police and military, and now the behavioral health world is starting to realize that us as firefighters and paramedics, we have needs that are specific to us that need to be met. Which is great, and there's always stuff coming out. So vet your education, your resources, and stay educated with that. Again, my name is Mike Wells. I'm a firefighter in Prince George's County. To reach me, here's my email. And to learn more about Local 1619's peer support team, please visit www.pgfdpeersupport.org. Thank you for your time. Stay safe.